Feared by all, he was a billionaire CEO, accustomed to having the world at his feet, women included. But that night, under the gaze of hundreds at a gala event, she did the unthinkable. She refused his kiss in public. His wounded pride curdled into obsession. And now, the sweet assistant who dared to say no was about to discover the price of provoking a man who never accepts defeat. The sharp click of her heels on the polished floor cut through the ballroom like a silent provocation. Serena Valmont arrived late, unhurried, and unapologetic. Each step was deliberate, as if she knew the precise weight of being noticed. She didn't belong in this world, yet she seemed tailor-made for it. The event, a lavish fundraiser that was little more than a facade, occupied the grand hall of the new convention center that bore his surname, Ravena. Modern, sterile, with cold lines of glass and brushed steel, it was a perfect reflection of its owner. Nothing here was merely decorative. Everything had a function, even the opulence. Serena couldn't remember the last time she'd worn a couture gown. Perhaps never. But tonight, in carmine red fabric that traced every curve with effortless grace, she walked as if she owed the world nothing. The dress was rented. The look in her eyes was not. It was the same one she wore to the office. Firm, direct, impossible to ignore. His presence, however, altered the very density of the air. Dante Ravena, standing in the center of the room, was more than noticed. He was felt. A man of 38, with eyes as cold as the surface of a midnight pool. His petroleum blue suit was tailored perfectly to his athletic frame. His tie loosened as if the world were his plaything, and he was already bored. Women watched him with a kind of dangerous anticipation. Men feared him in silence. She didn't see him at first. She was too busy trying to find a corner to hide in. But he saw her. And when he did, he didn't look away for a single second. Finally, he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else, and handed his champagne flute to a passing waiter without a glance. His body began to move in her direction, parting the crowd as if he owned the very space they occupied. And, in fact, he did. When Dante stood before Serena, there were no greetings, no formalities, only the uncomfortable silence between two forces pretending not to be drawn to one another. "I thought you were going to leave me waiting," he said, his voice low, marked by a husky timbre that always made his words sound more intimate than they should. "I thought you wouldn't miss me," she replied, her chin held high, though she couldn't hide her discomfort. "I always miss what I can't control." There was something in his eyes that night, a glint she hadn't seen in the office. It wasn't just interest, it was hunger. A shiver traced its way down Serena's spine. Their conversation was interrupted by a blonde socialite who leaned in too close, touching Dante's arm with rehearsed intimacy. He smiled, but his eyes never left Serena. "You look beautiful," he said, the words a challenge. "You're being insufferable," she returned, unsmiling. He took a step forward, closing the distance between them. His cologne, something woody, warm, and cruelly masculine, enveloped her, disarming her completely. When Dante raised a hand to her chin, tilting her face up, phones around them began to rise discreetly. Serena realized it too late. They were being watched, photographed, and he knew it. "Kiss me," he commanded, his voice lower than a whisper, his eyes locked on hers. Just one. Time froze. She could obey, let the moment pass. It would be easier. Just tilt her head, close her eyes, pretend. But Serena didn't belong to this world, and she didn't pretend. With an elegant movement, she took his hand from her face, her touch firm. Her eyes didn't waver. I am not an event conquest, Mr. Ravena. The silence around them seemed to deepen. Someone let out a muffled laugh. The blonde vanished without a word, and Dante froze. For the first time, someone had refused him, in public, under the glare of flashing cameras. His smile was slow, dangerous, almost clinical. So it's done then, he said, his voice laced with something that wasn't anger. It was worse. Curiosity. What you've just done, Serena. You've ignited a kind of interest that won't fade easily. She took a deep breath, fighting for control, though her knees were trembling. You'll get over it. He leaned in, his lips dangerously close to her ear. Do I seem like a man who gets over things? Or a man who takes what he wants? She didn't answer. She simply turned and walked toward the exit, feeling every pair of eyes burning into her back. As the ballroom doors closed behind her, Serena didn't know if she had won, or if she had just started a game with no return. Inside, Dante Ravena took a fresh glass of champagne but didn't drink. He just watched the door through which she had disappeared. There was something in his eyes now, something primitive, fierce. Serena Valmont had just become his new personal project, and he never gave up. The next morning, Serena arrived at the Ravenna Group headquarters at 8 o'clock sharp. Her steps were firm, echoing impeccably through the corridors of mirrored glass and steel. Outwardly, she exuded control. Inwardly, a persistent alarm hammered in her mind. She had crossed a line with Dante Ravena. In the panoramic elevator, she pressed the button for the 32nd floor with hesitant fingers. The previous night seemed to have seeped into her skin. The touch of his hand, the whisper in her ear, his dangerously fixed gaze. It all remained a sensory imprint, a scent that time had not yet managed to dissipate. As soon as the doors opened, she felt the shift in the executive floor's atmosphere. The air, usually cold and silent, now vibrated with a strange tension. Assistants whispered. Directors avoided her gaze. Something had changed. And then she knew. The door to his office was wide open. And there he was, standing with his back to the city that stretched out beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Come in, Serena, he said without turning. She obeyed, her spine straight, her chin high, her heart racing. You sent for me, sir. He turned slowly, with the calm of a man who knew the world revolved around him. He was without his jacket, his white shirt slightly unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, revealing an Italian leather watch that cost more than her car. He was a man who didn't need to raise his voice to be feared. You were on every major news portal by dawn, he said, tossing a tablet onto his desk. The headline screamed, "The assistant who rejected the country's most powerful CEO." Serena approached, her eyes scanning the article. The video already had over 2 million views. Her face, her refusal, the tension between them, captured from every possible angle. She fought to keep her voice steady. I didn't ask for this. No. But you provoked it. Deliberately. And if it were the other way around, she challenged, If I had kissed you against your will, in front of everyone, would I be on those same portals? He raised an eyebrow. Are you trying to teach me about boundaries, Serena? She took a deep breath. A mistake. His scent seemed stronger at this distance. I'm just reminding you that I work here. I'm your assistant, not gala entertainment. Dante moved slowly, circling the desk until he stood directly in front of her. His eyes analyzed every inch of her face, not with gentleness, but with an intensity that bordered on violation. And what if I want you to be both? Serena looked away. That's not professional. Professional would be me firing you for damaging the company's image. But that's not what I'm going to do. I want to keep you close. She lifted her face, defiant. Why? He smiled, but didn't answer. Instead, he picked up a black envelope and handed it to her. Inside is your new contract, a promotion to coordinator of strategic relations. Triple your salary, new corporate card, private office. Serena froze. What? I don't repeat myself, Serena. The position is yours. There is, however, one condition. He stepped closer. She could see the shadow of his stubble, the hard line of his jaw, the hint of provocation at the corner of his mouth. You'll be working directly with me, 24 hours a day. You will accompany me on all my trips. You will remain by my side in meetings, events, dinners, and yes, that includes weekends. She felt the floor drop out from under her, a promotion disguised as a gilded cage. This is a punishment. This is control. You ignited something in me, Serena, and I have no intention of ignoring it. I want you close. I want to see what else you can deny me. And if I refuse? He tilted his head, studying her audacity with renewed interest. You're going to refuse me again? With that look in your eyes? With your body trembling just from being here? She took a step back. He advanced too. You can say no now, but let's see how long you can hold out. Because once you enter my game, Serena, you don't leave in one piece. She was about to retort, with an insult, perhaps, or another challenge, when his phone rang. He answered it without taking his eyes off her. Yes, 30 minutes. Have the jet ready. She's coming with me. He hung up. Pack your thing. We're flying to Paris today, a meeting with Maison Roubaix, and I want you by my side. Literally. Serena struggled to maintain her composure. I am not an accessory, Mr. Ravena. He smiled. Good. Accessories are replaceable. You, Serena Valmont, are irreplaceable. 2 hours later, Serena was on Dante's private jet, sitting in a white leather armchair across from him. She pretended to read reports, while her heart beat a frantic rhythm against her ribs. He, on the other hand, looked completely relaxed, a glass of whiskey in hand, legs crossed, watching the sky through the window. You're nervous, he said, without turning his head. I'm focused. Don't lie to me. It excites me more than it should. She looked up, feeling the blood rush to her cheeks. You are crossing lines again, sir. And you keep setting lines you can barely maintain. You're here, aren't you? Serena closed her eyes for a second. She needed to find her balance. She couldn't let him win so easily. But when Dante leaned forward and said, his voice low and husky, how long do you think it will be before you want me more than you fear me? She knew the game had begun and someone was going to get hurt. The hotel in Paris was quieter than any place Serena had ever known. The top floor corridor felt like a temple. Charcoal gray carpets, velvet walls, and dark wooden doors with gold handles that gleamed under indirect lighting. The luxury was discreet, the sophistication brutal. It was the kind of place Dante Ravena frequented without a second thought. The driver had left her at the entrance with clear instructions. Her suite was next to his. No intermediaries, no reception, no choice. Serena crossed the lobby without speaking to anyone. The elegant dress she'd worn since the flight clung to her body, but her mind was far from aesthetics. All she could think was, how long? When she entered the suite, everything was perfectly arranged. Fresh flowers, cut fruit, a French wine she couldn't pronounce. On the bed lay a black envelope with her name in silver script. She opened it cautiously. For tomorrow. Black dress, gold shoes. Meeting at 10 a.m. Dinner at 8 p.m. by my side. He signed with a single letter, as if it were a decree. Serena placed the card on the nightstand, taking a deep breath. She was not a submissive woman. She wasn't one of those who surrendered to power and looks. She had always been rational, practical, cold, even. But Dante made her question everything. The next morning, she walked into the meeting room with the rehearsed confidence of an executive ready for battle. Dante was already at the head of the table, surrounded by directors from Maison Roubaix, speaking fluent French, gesturing little, and observing everything. When he saw her, his eyes darkened. She was stunning. The dress was fitted and elegant, with a subtle cutout in the back that implied more than it revealed. Her hair was in a low bun, her glasses were thin, her skin faintly illuminated. A venom disguised in sophistication. He didn't smile, but his eyes said it all. Mademoiselle Valmont, he greeted in French, his tone more intimate than professional. Serena sat beside him, as ordered. During the meeting, she became acutely aware of what he was doing. He would let his leg brush against hers under the table. When she moved away, he would lean in, his arm grazing hers as he murmured comments just beside her ear. Always too low. Always too close. The meeting lasted 2 hours, and for every single minute, Serena fought for her own concentration. In the end, the French representatives left, satisfied. Dante remained seated, staring out the window. She stood, ready to leave. Stay, he commanded, without raising his voice. She stopped. Mr. Ravena, the meeting is over. He finally turned to look at her, a slow knowing smile playing on his lips. But the game is not. She turned slowly, her irritation unconcealed. This is work. I am your employee. No, he replied, rising to his feet. He approached her with measured steps, his gaze ensnaring hers like an invisible tether. You're the most addictive challenge I've ever faced. And right now, the most dangerous woman in my life. Why did you reject me? Because you disarm me, he said, and because you desire me, yet insist on denying it. She tried to look away, but he grasped her arm firmly, yet without force, just enough to ignite the electric tension between them. Tell me you feel nothing. Look into my eyes and say, I'm only your boss. Serena parted her lips, but no words emerged. He smiled faintly. Exactly. He drew closer, his lips nearly brushing the curve of her neck. If you kiss me now, I swear I'll stop. For today, I won't touch you again. Just one kiss. She closed her eyes, feeling his breath against her skin. But she didn't kiss him. Instead, she pulled away, slowly but resolutely. You've broken the rules. Now I'll make my own, which are: you touch me only when I allow it. You kiss me only when I ask. And never, ever assume you possess me. He watched her with a glint in his eyes, a mix of fascination and madness. Then tell me, Serena, why are you still here? She offered no reply, merely walking away, knowing her absence would be the next provocation. That night, she dined alone, but at 2 in the morning, a note slipped under her suite door. You don't know how to play, Serena Valmont, but I'll teach you. Along with it, a key to his room. A storm raged over Paris, thunderbolts slicing the sky like silent blades, rain lashing the hotel windows like impatient fingers. The city vanished beneath a veil of mist and distorted lights. Inside her suite, the silence was thick, broken only by the faint ticking of the clock at 2 a.m. Serena sat awake in a silk wine robe that clung to her bare skin, staring at the key and note from Dante. She could tear the paper, discard the key, return to bed, and pretend the fire burning beneath her skin was imaginary. But it wasn't. From the moment his lips had grazed her neck in that meeting room, she had known. She had crossed an invisible boundary, and now, every second without his touch was a torment she feigned to endure. Rising slowly, the silk gliding over her like a living entity, she wore nothing beneath. No heels, no perfume. She moved through the quiet corridor of the top floor, her heart pounding like a war drum. At door 808, she didn't knock. She used the key. It opened to reveal a spacious suite bathed in low light, with Dante standing by the window, gazing at the rain-swept city. Barefoot, he wore only low-slung dark sweatpants, his hair damp, a fitted tee outlining his broad shoulders and sculpted muscles. A glass of wine in his hand, but it was his gaze that weighed heaviest. You're late, he said, not looking away. I didn't come for what you're thinking. No. He stepped forward. Then why wear nothing underneath? Serena remained silent, the robe growing bolder under his scrutiny, every inch of her skin pulsing beneath the light fabric. I could still leave. Will you? She should have. Reason demanded it, but something in his gaze, as if she were the start of a long-buried confession, a blend of desire and need, kept her rooted. Dante, the man who controlled everything, teetered on the edge of losing control, and that held her. She took 3 swift steps and collided with him. Her hands clutched the hem of his shirt, yanking with restrained fury. Their mouths met in a raw, heated, urgent kiss. He responded with equal intensity, invading, dominating, exploring, as if mapping her hidden sensations. Dante gripped her waist, lifting her effortlessly. Her legs wrapped around him instinctively, and his lips trailed to her neck, then her shoulder, then the hollow between neck and collarbone. Each kiss, a thread of surrender. Are you playing with me? She murmured against his skin. And I love it, he replied. You think you have me? She gasped between a bite and a shiver. Am I the one in control? You're driving me mad, he said, pulling the robe's tie. The fabric whispered as it fell like a scarlet petal. He looked at her as if beholding something long anticipated. Tell me to stop. She didn't. He laid her on the white sheets, bare and exposed, defiant. You're late, Ravenna. That kiss should have happened that night. He didn't hesitate, descending upon her with the intensity of one who claims not merely kisses. His hands explored, his mouth charted every inch as if staking new territory. Serena matched his hunger, her nails digging into his shoulders, fingers tangling in his hair, soft moans escaping. There was no tenderness here. It was war, vengeance, and desire in a clash of bodies that had pretended too long. For hours, they lost themselves in one another, on the bed, against the wall, on the floor, bodies recognizing, punishing, and claiming. When it ended, exhausted beneath the tangled sheets, a different silence fell. Not guilt, but something more dangerous: connection. Neither spoke. When he pulled her to his chest, wrapping his arms around her as if it were instinct, she knew. This wasn't just sex. It was the beginning of something neither could control, or perhaps survive. Serena awoke to the soft sunlight filtering through the curtains. For a moment, she lay still, feeling the fine sheet against her bare skin, his scent lingering on the pillows, a warm glow spreading from her core, a mix of pleasure and apprehension. Dante wasn't in bed. The morning quiet was punctuated by the faint clink of dishes from the sitting room. She rose, wrapping herself in a hotel robe, and padded barefoot to the balcony. There he was, back turned, in dark trousers and an open-cuffed white shirt, barefoot, holding a coffee cup and a newspaper. Sunlight kissed his golden skin, broad shoulders, the subtle tension of a man who never fully relaxed. Sensing her, he turned slowly and smiled, a lazy half-smirk full of intent. "Good morning, Valmont. Do you do this on purpose?" she asked, crossing her arms under the robe. "Stand there in the sunlight like a cologne ad." He shrugged with feigned modesty. "I merely exist." She laughed despite herself. He was insufferable, arrogant, utterly irresistible. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, offering the cup. "Better than I should have," she replied, accepting it and leaning beside him on the balcony. They shared a comfortable silence, the kind that begins to mean something, and it unnerved her. "What are we doing, Dante?" He met her eyes. "You're not a man of contracts. You break rules, only those worth breaking. And if I break mine, then we're finally playing for real." So Serena bit her lip to stifle a smile. He always disrupted everything with a phrase, a look, a touch. "Do you have a meeting today?" "I canceled." "Why?" "Because my priorities have shifted." He stepped closer. "Now it's you." She fought a laugh, but her body betrayed her. Heart racing, lips parting, breath quickening. "You know exactly what you're doing, don't you?" "Always," he said, his fingers brushing her waist. "But with you, I want more than to do. I want to see how far you'll let me go." She lifted her chin defiantly. "I won't make it easy." "I count on that." And then, slowly, he kissed her. A firm, unhurried kiss, brimming with veiled promises. It wasn't like the others. It tasted of addiction, of continuity, of peril. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his chest and whispered, "This wasn't part of the plan." "Good," he murmured, "because now, Serena Valmont, the game has turned serious." The days following the contract signing between Serena Valmont and Dante Ravena felt like scenes from an alternate reality, where time bent to the whims of desire. Nothing was predictable. Every encounter, message, or disguised order pulsed with intention. Each morning, the air between them grew denser, laden with possibilities and risks. Serena often questioned her own sanity. She, the ever reserved woman who managed CEOs' schedules and filtered multi-million dollar proposals without a ripple in her voice, now wandered hotel corridors in lingerie, answering midnight calls with commands like, "Wear red high heels, dark lipstick. I want you at midnight." And she went. Not out of obligation. The contract made that clear, but because there was an intoxicating power in being desired with such precision. Dante didn't treat her as a conquest. He treated her as a refined obsession, an elegant vice, a luxury he refused to share. By the third week, they were in Milan for an international tech and investment event, gathering Europe's elite. Dante was the keynote speaker for a closed panel of 20 billionaires, all accustomed to commanding rooms and hearts. Yet, amid them, it was Dante who held the gaze of the audience and hers. Serena entered the hall with the poise of a woman who knew her worth, in a black jumpsuit with a deep backline, fluid fabric tracing her curves effortlessly, her hair in a meticulously tousled bun, her eyes seeking only one face, his. Dante stood center stage in a tailored graphite suit, no tie, shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His speech was sharp, his posture flawless, but what few noticed, and what Serena felt like a direct caress, was his gaze, returning to her every 2 minutes. Intense, heated, declaring, "You're my favorite distraction and my most perilous plan." After the panel, she joined the cocktail reception. Champagne, ambient music, diplomatic chatter. But she barely listened, attuned to the subtle vibration in her bag. When it finally buzzed, she knew what awaited. Dante, room 507, now, red lingerie. Just you. You know the rest? She didn't respond. Finishing her glass, she strode to the elevator, ignoring dinner invitations and an indecent proposal from a French investor. Room 507 was dim and scented with amber. Serena entered slowly, already versed in the game. She shed her jumpsuit with calculated movements, the cool air kissing her warmed skin. The lingerie was new, red lace with gold accents, chosen by her, purchased with Dante's corporate card as he'd ordered days before. A intimate gift under his command. She settled into the chair by the window, crossing her legs, adjusting her hair, applying dark wine lipstick, and watching the city below. A woman in control of her own submission. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Dante entered without a word, tossing his jacket aside, his eyes devouring her. "You obeyed," he said, his voice low and husky, laced with provocation and desire. "I chose," she replied, with a half smile. He approached slowly, his presence commanding the room. Serena's skin tingled just from his nearness. "You know what I love most about this contract, Valmont? The exclusivity clause?" "No." He knelt before her, eyes level with hers. "The part where you pretend to be indifferent, but you're already undone just from seeing me walk through that door." She swallowed hard. His hands glided up her thighs, parting them gently, unhurried. His touch was warm, firm, assured. As he leaned in to kiss the inside of her thigh, Serena sighed, louder than she intended for someone clinging to control. "Will you make me beg?" she whispered between breaths. "Not yet. Tonight, I want to see you lose your rhythm." And he had kept his promise. What followed was a parade of slow, calculated pleasure. Dante knew exactly how to touch her, where to kiss, what to say. He whispered Italian in her ear, bit down slowly, and pulled her hair with a firm, possessive grip. And when he finally entered her, Serena no longer knew where pleasure ended and surrender began. Hours later, lying beside him, her body still smoldering, Serena broke the silence. "Do you repeat this contract often?" He turned his head toward her. "I've never done this before." "Swear it." "Serena, I don't usually ask for permission to touch a woman. With you, I want the opposite. I want you to ask me, to look at me and say it. Kiss me now. And if you don't say it, I wait." She was quiet for a few seconds. Then she turned, her expression serious. "Then listen to me now. Kiss me. Because if you stop for even a second, I'll give up on this contract and go back to pretending I'm immune." Dante didn't hesitate. He kissed her with force. And in that kiss, there was more than sex, more than lust. There was an unspoken promise. This was no longer just an agreement. When they broke apart, Serena rested her face against his chest and whispered, "I don't want this to end in 90 days. Dante remained silent, but the arms he tightened around her said more than any words could. The contract stipulated 90 days. But Serena had already lost all sense of how many had passed since her routine had unraveled in Dante Ravena's arms. Everything that had once been solid, her work, her logic, her emotional defenses, was beginning to feel fragile against the intensity of a connection that grew in silence, invading spaces she never knew existed. That morning in Milan, she woke before him. The sun filtered through the pale curtains, painting the room in shades of gold. She was lying on her side, her head resting on Dante's bare chest. His arm was wrapped around her, possessive even in sleep. And the sound of his heart, a steady, deep rhythm, lulled her into a kind of calm she had never known. There were no promises, no declarations, but there was something between them that no clause could ever explain. He would fall silent just so he could hear her breathe. He touched her with a sense of recognition, and when he looked at her, it wasn't as if he desired a body. It was as if he were reading her mind. She didn't want to move, but when she tried to slip away without waking him, his hand tightened on her waist. "Stay," he murmured, his voice thick and still heavy with sleep. "Just a little longer," she smiled, settling back against his chest. "You always wake up before I can escape. I don't need to open my eyes to know when you're thinking of leaving." "I wasn't thinking of leaving," she lied. "Yes, you were, but you're not going to." Dante opened his eyes slowly. They were dark and calm, that indecipherable shade she had learned to both fear and desire. "You know what's crazy?" he said, turning on his side to face her. "I prepared for everything with you, for the resistance, for the game, for the battle, and now I find myself just waking up with you, and it feels like the only plan worth keeping." The silence between them was as intimate as a kiss. Serena didn't answer, but when she cupped his face and kissed him gently, Dante understood. Something was changing, something that went beyond the physical, and it was growing. day by day, in the details. Later, when they went down for breakfast at the hotel, Serena noticed something different in the way people looked at them. Some smiles were more open, others more discreet, but they all seemed to know something. Everyone is staring at us, she murmured. Dante didn't look up from the menu. They're envious and afraid. Afraid. Afraid of what happens when two players stop bluffing. She smiled, shaking her head. You're impossible, and you're becoming dangerous. Do you know what it means when you walk into a room with me and no one else matters? What? That I'm completely screwed, and I don't care. Serena was about to reply when the waiter brought a small, discreet bouquet of white orchids, her favorite flower. No card, no name. She raised her eyes to Dante, suspicious. Was this you? He arched an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. No, but I wish it had been. She picked up the bouquet, confused. No one else knew that detail. At least no one who was here. Later, in the elevator, Dante was quieter than usual. What is it? Those flowers. Someone is watching you far too closely. And you don't like it. She shrugged, trying to downplay it. It could have been just some random admirer. He pulled her by the waist, pinning her against the elevator wall. His touch was firm, his eyes serious. I don't share, Serena. She held her breath. Are you jealous? I have instincts, and they're rarely wrong. That night, he took her to dinner at a hidden restaurant in the old part of Milan. It was all low light, soft instrumental music, and red wine served by a silent waiter. No scandalous luxury. It was refined, intentional, and for Serena, completely unexpected. You thought of every detail, didn't you? She asked, watching the wine in her glass. Of course. I even chose the napkins, he replied with a smile. She laughed, feeling lighter than she had in days. I didn't expect this from you. A dinner like this? It's almost romantic. I didn't expect it either. But you've turned all my expectations upside down. How so? I planned to devour you, and now all I can think about is how to make this last. Make what last? Whatever is happening here? And I'm not just talking about the sex. She fell silent for a few seconds, then leaned a little closer to him. Do you know what I want right now? Tell me. A night with no rush, no commands, no contract. Just you and me, and time. Dante let out a sharp breath, as if that were the most intimate request anyone had ever made of him. Then come with me. Back in the suite, Serena was surprised when Dante didn't tear her clothes off. Instead, he lay down with her on the bed, face to face, and spent minutes just stroking her hair, her face, her shoulders. They spoke in low voices, between slow kisses and soft touches. And when they made love, it was different. There was a delicacy to it, a sense of surrender. And there was something in his eyes, a new light, a strange calm that made everything feel more intimate than any night before. When it was over, Dante didn't let her go. He just pulled her against his chest and said in a raw voice, I've never done this with anyone. Done what? Felt the need to stop the world, just to make one night last longer. Serena closed her eyes, and for the first time since it all began, she allowed herself to think a thought she hadn't yet dared to speak aloud. This might be love. The Ravenna Group's annual gala was the most anticipated event of the season. Journalists fought for space at the entrance to the glass and gold hall of the Palazzo di Luce in Rome. It was here that secret contracts were signed over champagne. Political alliances were sealed with a handshake, and where, months ago, Serena Valmont had refused a kiss in front of a frozen audience. She hadn't forgotten. The hall, with its golden columns, mirrored floor, and immense chandeliers reflecting 1,000 points of light, was a world unto itself. Women in couture gowns, men in tailored tuxedos, and all eyes watching the movements of every important guest. Serena entered alone. She wore a long, flowing white silk gown with a bare back and thin straps that highlighted her golden skin under the crystal light. Her hair was loose, held back by a single discreet pin, her makeup soft. She looked like a mirage, yet she walked as if she owned the very ground beneath her feet. Camera flashes followed her hungrily. Ever since her name had been linked to Dante Ravena's, she had become both a headline and a mystery. The assistant who refused the kiss. The woman who signed an intimate contract with the most untouchable man in Europe. The woman who, against all odds, had made him lose control. But where was he? Serena accepted a glass of champagne and tried to mask her anticipation. She hadn't seen him since their last night in Milan. He had left before dawn, leaving only a note on her pillow. "Wait for me." And she had waited. "Is everything all right?" one of her team's assistants asked, approaching her. "There's a certain glow about you tonight." Serena just smiled without answering. Suddenly, the lights began to shift. A single spotlight illuminated the center of the hall, where a round stage was set up for corporate speeches and tributes. But nothing had been announced. No master of ceremonies, no warning. The music faded to silence. And then he appeared, Dante Ravena. He walked onto the stage in silence, wearing an impeccable black tuxedo, his bow tie loosened, his gaze fixed in only one direction, on her. Serena froze, not from fear, but because the world around her had vanished. He took the microphone, his voice calm and firm, but with a visible light in his eyes. "A few months ago, I stood in this very hall, and in front of all of you, I made a mistake. I thought I could command a woman with a gesture, a kiss, an act of audacity." People exchanged knowing glances, remembering the scene. She said no. And in that no, I found both my punishment and my salvation. Because that woman taught me that you don't win someone with power. You win them with truth, with presence, with time. He looked directly at Serena. "You refused my kiss, and I understood, for the first time, the true value of a yes." She felt her eyes well up, her heart pounding, just like it did that first time. He stepped down from the stage. Every step he took was an event. The guests parted, clearing a path as if they knew what was about to happen. Dante stopped in front of her, knelt on one knee, and the entire room held its breath. Serena brought her hands to her mouth, her eyes filled with tears, her body trembling. Not from surprise, but from certainty. Dante pulled a small, black velvet box from his pocket. Opening it, he revealed a white gold ring with a single teardrop-cut emerald. Simple, elegant, intense, just like her. "Serena Valmont," he said, his voice carrying through the hall without a microphone. "You turned my world upside down. You taught me how to wait, how to listen, how to yield, and how to feel. You are not just any woman. You are the only one, and I no longer want to love you by contract." She was openly crying now. "I want to love you by choice, by promise, for all the days that are yet to come. So today, in front of everyone, I am asking you for the opposite of that first gesture. Serena, will you marry me?" The hall erupted in murmurs, camera flashes, tears, and smiles. She took a deep breath, looked around, and then back at him, her voice as firm as it had been months ago. "Yes. Now, yes." Dante smiled as he never had before. He rose to his feet and kissed her. There, in front of everyone, just like that first day. But now, there was no game, no pride, only love and applause. The island of Cavallo seemed to float between the sky and the sea. No cars, no roads, no sound, but the wind and the waves. A silent, luxurious refuge, surrounded by pale rock, untouched greenery, and a shade of blue that only exists where time stands still. It was here that Serena Valmont, now Serena Ravenna, said, "I do," before the sea, before a handful of guests, and before the only man who had ever made her break every rule she had ever written for herself. The altar, set on a terrace suspended over the cliffside, was simple and elegant. White flowers, green foliage, and candles in crystal holders. In the background, the Mediterranean reflected the sky like a liquid mirror. Dante waited for her, dressed in a light beige suit, no tie, his skin tanned by the island sun, his hair slightly tousled by the wind. He wasn't blinking. He wasn't smiling broadly. But his eyes said everything. He had never wanted anything or anyone as much as he wanted the woman, now walking toward him. Serena walked barefoot. Her dress flowed around her legs as if made of sea foam, white, light, with a bare back and a deep V neckline. Her hair was loose, held back only by a single golden thread. An emerald ring shone on her left hand. When she stopped in front of Dante, the world seemed to hold its breath. "I still remember your first no," he said softly, for her ears only. "The most beautiful one of my life," she smiled. "And now you're getting my final yes." The ceremony was brief. No long speeches, no theatrical promises. Just vows, exchanged in low voices, kisses between smiles, and tear-filled eyes. Dante said she was the most beautiful chaos he had ever known. Serena said he was the order she had always pretended she didn't need. When they kissed, the guests rose to their feet, applauding. The emotion was visible on even the most stoic faces. The couple, who had begun with a silent scandal, now ended with an unabashed love. After the ceremony, a candlelit dinner was served on the beach. Rustic furniture, linen tablecloths, fine china, and a selection of wines chosen personally by Dante. The two sat side by side, hands clasped under the table, exchanging knowing smiles between toasts. Later, long after everyone else had gone to bed, Serena and Dante walked alone on the sand. He was carrying her in his arms. She was laughing. Her dress had been replaced by a short white nightgown, while he wore only linen trousers, his feet bare. When they reached the stone house by the sea, built for this night alone, he laid her gently upon the bed, a canvas of white sheets and rose petals. Can we break the contract now? He asked, settling beside her. It's long past time, she whispered with a smile. Which clause do you want to tear up first? All of them, except one. Which one? She met his gaze. The one about loving me without an expiration date. And he replied, before extinguishing the candles with a soft breath, that one is for life.